All right, people. We got Eric Friedlander here on Foot by the Foot, also known as RicFit. How's it going, buddy?
All good, bro. All good. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, where you at nowadays?
Sweden. Yeah,
Yeah,
so wife is studying over here, studying law, be here for another year, and then hopefully get a permanent spot in Florida, and then also have like a spot in Finland where she's from for 3 months, because as we both know, a lot of the football is out here. So plan is 9 months in the US and 3 months in Finland.
yeah. You're definitely. You and I have very similar paths in terms of the traveling. But talk about a little bit. Who are you? What do you do? What's your impact on the game within the
For
soccer
sure.
world today?
For sure. I don't even know what I do anymore, bro. But nah, yeah. But long story short, obviously, come from Long Island, New York. 31 years old, FIFA licensed agent right now. Played overseas for 11 years in 5 different countries. Obviously, we have a similar, pathway as well, just experiencing different cultures. Um, Played 1 year Division 1 at the University of Buffalo, and then decided to head over to Germany to chase pro football. And yeah, I mean, it's I wouldn't give it up for anything. I mean, obviously, kind of left school, was pursuing dentistry in the beginning. I knew that wasn't for me. Finished exercise science and kind of went overseas and yeah, chased it, became my own agent for most of the part, finished out with a great agent, um, you know, my last couple of years. But really, what we do and my goal is to help overlooked players, right, get to the pro level, right? So we have two sides that we've developed. We have the RicFit Academy and then the RicFit Agency. The RicFit Academy side, what we're trying to do is create a pathway for players, create a clear roadmap for players, which kind of gives them those clear steps to get to the pro level, right? Because, I think, you and me both know we were starting out, you reach out to agents, right? And like, you get ghosted, you reach out to scouts, reach out to clubs, you get ghosted. So what we want to do is we want to help a lot of those, guys and even girls now. We actually really do enjoy working with girls is, we essentially want to show them the pathway and the roadmap, right, without the agent, right? Because I think a lot of players, they think, especially a lot of American players, they think that they need an agent. But the truth is, they don't really need an agent. What they need is to just, be the best player where they're currently at, top three, get a, solid highlight video, build out a solid CV, have a nice full game of themselves. And then, kind of whether it's chasing the path in the US, right? Whether it's through the academy system, going to college, or whether it's chasing the dream overseas. Our goal is to, make anything possible for a player when they come to us for help.
Yeah, so how do you go about, creating this plan for them? You mentioned that you have players that you're working with from all over the world. How are you able to build that kind of that plan for them when you're not with them every single day to really, uh, I don't want to say hold their hand, but essentially kind of guide them through moments where they don't really know what the next step is, and honestly, neither do you as well, just because you really don't know what a player's path is. Even looking at your journey, right? You had no idea you'd go play D1 to to bouncing around from Sweden to Latvia to Germany to Israel, just to name a few of the places. But how
Okay.
are you building that out for the kids?
Yeah, no, great question. Yeah, so for the academy guys, once they come in, we have a very simple system. I coined it, let's say the pro player launchpad, where it's essentially like a launch into their pro career. So obviously, I had developed the online personal training path because, I had trained people in person when I was 18, 19, 20. And then when I was chasing the pro dream, like, I'm a very, me, I'm a passionate guy, really, love to help people. Like for me, my number one thing is really helping people mentally and physically. So, I realized trying to chase the dream myself and playing and trying to, compete at a high level every single day, I couldn't do the in-person stuff. So at 22, I started the business RicFit. Now we've been in business, thankfully for 9 years. And, we've just continued to grow. Thankfully to all the clients that trust in us and believe in our path and the results we've gotten. So yeah, essentially what we do is the player submits a 90-minute game, and we have a guy who works in the MLS who reviews their match. He grades them out of 5, right? 4 is kind of ready for, let's say, lower level pro trials. 5 is, hey, Rick, you should take a look at this guy. He's probably ready for an agency contract, right? For an exclusive representation agreement. So we kind of take that, break that down with, we have a couple strength and conditioning coaches and a nutrition coach. And we take that, they do 7 like key physical tests. And basically from there, we create them like a personalized program. They go through a questionnaire where they talk about injury history. And then we just build them out like a gym plan. And every 4 to 6 weeks, we update it based on if they're in season, if they're off season. And we also, they have access to 6 different coaches, right? They have access to a guy who helps them get a remote job. They have access to the strength and conditioning coach, access to me in the networking side, agency side. They have access to, we just brought a guy on who his son actually plays for AS Roma, and he believes in the mission, and we brought him on as well. He's going to be a mentor for our guys. And then we have a guy who helps them with their habits and routines, creating a solid routine, because we get guys who work night shifts, right? So we kind of tailor their schedule based on, what their personalized day to day is. And then the last guy is the head scouting director, who, when they're ready for a trial at around month 3, 4, or 5, we pair them with a club to go out on trial.
Wow. That's that's the full package. I mean, that's a lot of service for a player to, I hope players aren't complaining, because it sounds like you're giving them, literally, you thought about everything that they need.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of, I think that's very, very cool of you to offer even like something as small as like a remote job. Because I know, as you know as well, a lot of these first contracts you're signing, you're not really making a lot of money. And
exactly.
um, I think that also alleviates some of the stress, the financial stress that comes with, being a pro in the beginning days.
Exactly.
Kind of reeling back to the first part and the evaluation side of things. You said you had an analyst there. You said analyst, right? Yeah, that
Yeah,
will,
analyst scout.
yeah, we'll evaluate the game. What criteria is he basing it on? Is it just
Yeah,
like
great
overall,
question.
like a 1 through 5, or is it like technical, tactical? Yeah, what are kind of your criteria that you want him to look for?
Yeah, I mean, he's been an unbelievable asset to the team. And, one of the things I was actually telling my stepfather yesterday, that, when you put out content and like what you don't only bring in like customers and clients, you bring in talent, right? So he believed in what we did. We got in touch on LinkedIn. And, to answer your question, what he goes over is technical ability, psychological, decision making, and physical, right? So those are the 4 criteria. From there, he grades each piece out of 5, and then he writes like a little, bit of a, couple sentences on like where to improve. Then he does like a 8 to 10 sentence paragraph on a review of the player, right? Possible leagues for myself and the scouting director to send him to, where he could fit in, and then a review of his highlight tape, right? Because you and me both know, when you're sending highlight tapes, you have 10 seconds to impress someone, right? And if you're, if it's not looking professional, if there's not quality in there, and you have like some small sided in there, you're juggling, or, some training clips, people aren't going to take you seriously. And, in this business, no one has time, right? So what we want to do is we want to make sure, hey, if a sporting director takes a look at this video, right away he's interested. All right. And then most important part is, based on everything he did, he passes that information to the strength and conditioning coach, where it's like, hey, boom, this is what this guy or this girl has to work on, to when month, 5 or 6 or 4 comes around, he's ready or she's ready for the trial.
Yeah, what does it look like in terms of communication? Because it sounds like there's a lot of people involved. Do you have some sort of I mean, obviously you built out an awesome app, and you've done well on that side, but do you guys use like a WhatsApp? Is there some sort of platform where um the kid is reaching, like, what if a kid needs to reach you and you're busy, but like, he needs your specific expertise? Like, how does that look in terms of the communication mode?
Yeah, no, amazing. So we use Slack. So basically, within the Slack platform, we have all the 6 coaches in there. And, as soon as they come in, as you know, being a coach, we tell them the why for everything, right? So, hey, when you have this question, you reach out to Rick. When you have this question, you reach out to David. When you have this question, you reach out to Dan, right? So we tell them the why for all that. So Slack is our main communication platform. Then we have School, which I don't know if you've heard of, which is basically similar to Facebook, but it's kind of like a group setting. And one of the best things, not to toot my own horn, that we've done is we've brought in experts. So we have about 7 to 8 group calls per week with different experts, right? So one of them, we have a coach from the Regionalliga, UEFA Pro coach. He comes on every single week, gives tips to these, guys and girls. We have Athlete Mentality, who's a mentality specialist, work with guys like Doku and other guys in the Prem. He gets on, talks about confidence every 2 weeks. We have the analyst. He gets on every single week, so you could bring your film to the meeting, right, and say, hey, boom, did I make the right decision here? Did I make the right decision here? What should I add to my highlight tape? Then you have a group call with me every single week. So and so on. We try to give these people, like as you said, I mean, we
Yeah,
try
you're
to spoon feed.
full pack, full service, man. You
Yeah,
give
I
them
mean,
full spot
we try to
treatment.
spoon feed them. Yeah, exactly. We're
No,
super
that's
exclusive.
and
Yeah,
like
because sorry.
and like the players are tuning in every single week to everything, or is it like it's kind of on, obviously put in what you want. Uh, if you can't make it, okay, but you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, so we record every session, right? So if they can't make it, right, we have the sessions in the school platform. Obviously, they also have access to our calendar, so they can book a one-on-one call every single week if they have more personal questions. But, as you know, man, like football is a cutthroat game and it's super lonely at times. So we try to get people to come on the calls with questions because luckily enough, we have about 20 to 50, people every single call, right? And essentially most questions everyone else has. So we want to kind of give the answer to a group.
yeah. You spoke a bit about your own brand, just RicFit, and starting that during COVID. Not obviously, I think you started it before, but for me, I
Yeah.
feel like it blew up during COVID. What was the mindset going into really pushing that to players? I feel like you combined a very niche market, and you really capitalized on that between soccer and fitness, and creating activities and drills for kids, and not kids, just players in general that want to improve their game. What was your mo going to that, and how were you able to scale that to obviously you have, like, I looked the other day. I always am curious. I'll go on your Instagram just to see how many followers you have, and it's like, it's honestly like really freaking cool to see. I think you had, like,
Yeah.
last time I checked, 366,000 followers. How were you able to, like, scale that, and you know, what's the growth look like for you in terms of what's the next step of RicFit? Obviously, combining with
Mm,
the agency, very cool. But want to get your take
100%.
on that.
Yeah, so we started it in 2017. When I was playing, I was an absolute savage, which, served me in good and bad ways. I would train twice a day, 6 days a week, right?
Yeah, you were
And
you were crazy. You were crazy, man. I was like, I remember I was like, dude, you need to relax. Like, I just trained. I'm good. Like, I don't need another session. Like, I don't need more touches. I need a
yeah, yeah.
my mind
That's
body.
why I have a Finnish wife, man. Calm me
Yeah,
down, the New York energy with the Finland.
without a doubt.
Yeah. No, but I mean, essentially the main reason for the brand, man, is like, and I told this to a couple buddies the other day, like I realized why agents actually love this thing, right? I didn't realize when I was playing because it's hectic, but you realize when you help a guy or a girl sign a contract, like it's actually as good or better than when you sign, right? So I think like the deep down why is I really like to help people, and change people's trajectory of their life, and really transform their life. And everything we do inside of our academy, beside, we love when players sign pro deals and, they get to the next level or take their first step into the pro game. But the biggest thing is actually the mindset shift that we see from when they come in to when they kind of leave, right? And then what they take from there. And I always tell parents, like, whether your son or daughter plays college professionally for their A team, they're going to come out of, this academy and work with us, and they're going to be a better person, right? In their relationships, in their day to day, they're going to be more present. They're going to be more focused, right? And, all in all, be happier, right? Essentially, the reason I started it is, I was on Instagram in 2017 and, basically saw a lot of these fat burning products and these pills and these quick fixes. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to get on and tell the truth, right? And that's just been the, MO since the beginning, right? Give as much possible for free to help. And then when someone wants personalized help, we're here to help.
Yeah, no, that's very, very cool. And I feel like only you can get away with that. You and your Long Island personality of just like
Exactly.
screw the fat burning pills. Like this is the you got to go work out if you're trying to get lose weight. Like
Yeah.
this is it.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, just I kind of I wanted to go back a little bit, but I had a thought on have you thought about obviously you're right now you're just focused on representing players and you're relatively new to the space. Um, but is there a point in you that wants to also branch out and represent, coaches as well within the agency world and having the same kind of service of, this is what it kind of takes to be a coach,
Mm.
in Romania, in Sweden, in Finland.
Hmm. Yeah, no, great question. I think that's something for sure, we'll think about in the future. We actually did sign a coach, the guy who's coaching at Brera in Macedonia, right? So I've been lucky enough to bring on Dragan Stojkov, who played actually in the US. He was at St. Louis,
Yeah,
Galaxy
yeah,
for a bit. And he's been absolutely amazing. Like the guy's an absolute machine.
yeah.
Great work rate, genuinely cares about humans, right? And that's the biggest thing for me in the agency, the human first, right? So, yeah, I mean, we already signed a coach. We're actually speaking with another coach who's coached high levels, Panathinaikos, Porto. So yeah, we're definitely interested in it. I wouldn't say we're specialized in it, right? It's the same thing for the women's market. Like we're willing to help women. We're not specialized in it yet, and that's the biggest thing that I learned in business. Obviously, for me and my personality, like I like being overwhelmed. I like being stressed because I have to adapt. But what I've realized is like I want to like be an expert in one lane before like and that's the biggest thing with business. Everything is like, oh, open up that next revenue source or that next path. But it's like, hey, let's be an expert in one field first, and then once we have the system built out for that and myself I can step out, then we can look at building other avenues.
Yeah. So what's your role within all this then? Are you the guy that's making the phone calls on behalf? Are you the one that's connecting people together? Kind of how do you fit in? Obviously, you're the CEO of the company, so this is your idea, this is your baby. But what's your role within all this?
Mhm. Yeah, great question. So I don't even know at this point, man. But no, I mean, basically, I have a lot of guys that in the company that I trust and I can rely on, right? So, and that's what I was saying before. The beautiful thing about what we do. My number two guy, he's the COO, amazing with the operations, creating systems, automations, AI, et cetera, et cetera. He was a client of mine, right? He's 21 now. I was the best man at his wedding. And, he came to America 12 years old from Mexico, didn't speak a word of English, started working with me at 15 years old, right? And about 2 years into the program, and he was working in a chicken shop frying chickens just to afford the program, And this is actually when I was in Israel. I think it was 2019. I remember the phone call where I was in Haifa, and he was telling me, hey, and he was a fantastic guy from the jump, like super responsible, great communication, and not to toot my own horn, but one of the things that I realized that I'm quite good at is spotting talent, right? Not only on the pitch, but like kind of like in a person. And I was like, hey, this kid is like legit. I think he was 16 or 17 at the time. He started, as a video editor, right? He was like, hey, Rick, I can't afford the program. I was like, hey, Emiliano, you ever thought about, doing any video editing or, anything like copywriting, right? Because I needed that as we were, looking to scale. So yeah, he started at $300 a month, and now he's almost doing a solid 5 figures. He got married at 21 years old, and has his own apartment with his wife. So yeah, I mean, just helping those careers and helping these guys, do that type of stuff is also amazing. But yeah, I mean, I manage a lot of the people in there, and then in terms of the agency side, I think I was telling you before we jumped on, and recorded, we have already 12 scouts. Um, and we're trying to really scout like a lot of the Eastern European and Balkan region. And basically, what I do from there is I bring the club usually, or I bring specific players. But essentially, what I want to do is make sure that the scout is eating as well, right? Because what I saw in other agencies or whatever is like it's a cutthroat business, and everyone wants to take a bit from everyone else. But for me, I want to feed everyone, right? So my whole thing was like, how can let's say Yuka in Finland benefit from this, right? How can he be long term with us, right? And for me, it's like looking at ways that like I'm flying him out to Budapest for a conference, right? So how can he be appreciated within the system? And the truth is, without the academy, I wouldn't be able to spend time on the agency, right? So my whole thing, it's kind of the thing for that I talk about with players. Hey, plan A is if you want to play pro, plan A, but you gotta. I wouldn't even call it a plan B, but you got to have something on the side in parallel that you're building, right? Whether it's a remote job, whether it's your own business, whether you're studying something, you can't just be focused on football. And that essentially allows you to take mind off of it, but also the remote jobs allow these players to have endurance to stay in the game. Because as you said, when you're first getting in, the money's very low. So what I've noticed is the ones who keep going are the ones who have that grit and the endurance to stay out there.
Yeah. Do you offer, obviously you're a self-made entrepreneur as well. Like, do you offer tips on, workshops where you're talking about just, how to build on your own ideas, how to follow through on your ideas? Is that something you do as well? Or is it more, just offering these remote jobs and, pushing these kids off to, you know, just to help ends meet?
Yeah, obviously I have, consultations here and there, but it's not something that I'm doing yet. And to be honest, like a lot of these gurus online who try to teach people how to make money and build their own business, like they haven't built their own thing yet.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to get this thing to the moon, and then I can start like doing consulting, right?
Yeah.
Because what I think is like RicFit is my baby, as you said, and it's my most of the money I make goes straight back into the business. I'm not over here wearing Rolexes. I'm not driving a fancy car, right? I'm 31 and I'm walking to the gym. I mean, we're doing all right, with RicFit. But my personality is like I'm not an ostentatious guy. I'm not a show off. Yeah, here and there I'll wear nice things, but I like to just pour it back into the business because for me, my happiness is growth and progression. It's not material things.
Yeah. So right now, obviously, what does a day look like for you? A typical work day, or you're obviously waking up, but what do meetings look like? I've been obviously trying to get a hold of you for a while. You're not an easy man to get a hold of, constantly doing all these meetings with clubs. But what's like a productive day for you now look like?
No, amazing. Yeah, so I generally wake up like 6:30, and right away got to get that coffee brewing. I mean, it's not.
I thought you were about to say I gotta hit the sauna, but that's probably I for me, sauna, Rick and Eric are like they kind of go hand in hand. Like I
Yeah.
feel like if you balled out on something, like you would have your own sauna in the crib.
Well, yeah, eventually. Oh, eventually, brother. But yeah, I mean, we're in Sweden, bro. We have a sauna in the building, so we're grateful.
Incredible.
Yeah. No, but yeah, just wake up, throw the coffee machine on, drink some water, and then I do some stretching, right? So sitting a lot, that low back starting to take a beating, it's like I got to start stretching these hip flexors and
Yeah, dude,
glutes and hamstrings.
spent too much time with the two a days when we were playing. I feel like you could probably keep playing, but I don't think
Yeah, exactly.
you like enjoy the enduring the pain on your body. I
The
remember,
suffering.
yeah, where were I think it was we were in Sweden or maybe we were in Israel, but like was it you had an ankle problem? And I was like, dude, you can't play. Like you need to just relax and like heal your
Yeah.
stuff. Like just get your mind right, get your chakras realigned. You're like, no, I gotta power through this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, that was part of my right, and that's part of, I wouldn't say it's a flaw. It's helped me to where I'm at right now, but you know, that recovery is huge. So yeah, I mean, obviously, getting older, try to do the stretching, the meditation, what I can do to kind of relax. But yeah, I mean, day to day, it's always, you know, changing. But I'm a big notebook guy, big journal guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, every single morning, journal. What I want to hit for the day. Obviously, Sundays I plan. The key things that I want to hit to grow the business, the big dominoes. Um, but yeah, generally every single day I need to get a workout in. So one of uh, one of my employees, he's actually head of media, also a guy who had been following me since he's 12 years old. He's 20 now. He's from Slovenia. I moved him over to Sweden, and he's just been working with me in person, kind of showing him the ropes. So we work out every single day. Get to the gym around 8:30 and generally finish. We hit the sauna, finish around like 10:30. Then dial on some work. I try to get like 2 to 4 hours of like very deep work in. Throw on those headphones. Once those hit the dome, I'm locked in. Throw on some Flow Studio, some epic work vibes, and then yeah, I just go in, see what's the most important. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, as I said, it ranges. I try to have my meetings in the afternoon because I like my brain power, fresh for the morning. And yeah, whatever the day throws at me, basically I'm taking.
Yeah, obviously you're pretty involved in the Balkan market, so your window, correct me if I'm wrong, is like Christmas time, right? That's
Yeah,
the primary bread and butter transfer window, and then summertime, I don't remember when it opens up, but um,
yeah. I mean, it opens around May. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, dude, like I've obviously been told and advised by other agents to focus on one market, but you know, obviously you want to take advice from people where you want to be at, right? And obviously with our massive audience, I think focusing on one market doesn't serve us. So yeah, I think I was telling you before, like one reason we really love the Balkan and Eastern European markets is because a lot of these players they don't have too high of expectations. And my first question always as an agent when I'm working with a professional player or someone with a lot of potential is how much do you see yourself earning per month, right? And
at the
from there
start,
I
at the start, or would you
yeah,
say
that's
more
that's
towards
honestly
like
my first question because I
cool?
want to see if the guy or the girl is delirious if they know the market. Right? I mean, I was told by an NCAA Division III player a couple months ago he wants to make 5K a month. And then one of my good buddies was hardly scraping by for 3 4K a month, a veteran in his league, right, playing pro for 10 years. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the college players I was telling you, they don't really understand the market. So I kind of want to get a scope on that, right? Because we don't want to work with players who have ego. That's kind of what I've told our scouts. Like, and I'll give you another example. We're talking to a guy right now. He's 22, second tier in Croatia, 400,000 on Transfermarkt. He's making 1,200 euros a month. I was like, hey, that's amazing. Like, we can get you a contract in the summer, anywhere from 3 to 5K per month, and I can say that confidently, right? And a lot of those guys, they want to go to the Western world, right? They want to go to, the US, right? And kind of working with us, it's kind of shiny in a sense, right? Where it's like, hey, you've developed in that league, and I think you can shine in this league. So for me, it's always about looking at the development path for the player.
Yeah, how much are you looking into transfer market and the importance of the value on the player in there? Like I was valued at I think the peak was like 150, 170, but man, let me tell you if I made anywhere near that amount of
Yeah.
money in my career, like even in a single year, I would have been the happiest guy. But how much are you really how much clout does that carry when you're sending players off to the clubs?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I mean, transfer market is important as like a filter, right? So the interesting thing that I see is I've sent sporting directors like two different players. One of them is better than the other. Like if you talk about quality and actually look into like Y Scout and the stats, but they prefer the guy with the higher transfer mark. And I think the reason
To sign straight up or for a trial just to bring them in?
just to have interest and have a
Yeah,
talk, you
got it.
know. So yeah, I think it's kind of a first barrier of entry, right? It's kind of sad, but the reality is, as I said before, everyone's so busy in this game where it's like it kind of serves as that first entry point. I just invested into Y Scout 2 days ago, right? So that's going to also help our players a lot.
Y Scout's great.
Uh, yeah, Y Scout, and then also we should jump on a call another time. I got to show you this thing called Transfer Room. I don't know if you ever heard it, but
I
it's
have heard of it. I
no,
don't know
dude,
too much about it, but I've heard
it's
of it. Yeah.
amazing, dude.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So basically, I actually like that platform better than Transfermart because we can have our players on there, and then essentially you have access to 900 different clubs, right? And then it has like this predictive AI and algorithm where it's like, hey, boom, this left back could be predicted to go to Sweden in the summer because let's say you Gordon needs a left back, right? So it kind of shows you those movements, and you can use Y Scout in tangent with that to predict like what kind of data. And you probably know Scandinavian clubs, they love data, right?
Yeah.
So when we're reaching out to Scandinavian clubs, we want to send data as well, and that also makes us look more professional.
Yeah, no, that's data. It's crazy how much the game has moved to data and the importance of it. I do think it. I think we're sometimes miss a little bit of the feel. I think you gotta, even for you. I mean, it's impossible for you to go see every player live, but even
Exactly.
when you're talking about analyzing a player to see like kind of where they fit and like the psychological part of it, like you can only see so much from video. Obviously, it doesn't you don't have every single action, and you want to see. For me, player body language is huge.
Yeah.
How
How
are
they
you
react to a
reacting when the
mistake.
ball's on the other side of the field? Like, are you like talking under your breath about the last play, or are you like you hungry for the next action? Um, what's
100%.
been in terms of like finding clubs right now for players? Like, where have you had the most success, and where are most of your connections at today?
Yeah, great question. So obviously Scandinavia, we're working actually with a club in the top flight, trying to go club to club, bring players from there to MLS, right? So we have 3 or 4 players we're working on trying to get to MLS from Superliga Denmark, which is a unbelievable league.
Like, top league.
Um, Also Norway, right? So the most amount of transfers I think in the winter was Norway to MLS. So MLS loves Norwegian league because obviously it's quite similar in style, and yeah, the physicality there is crazy. So for me, I mean, I would say Scandinavia. I really like Poland as a market. I think it's an unbelievable market. The money that they can pay there is crazy,
Yeah.
and also the people there are quite like logical. They're not super emotional, right? So it's easy to talk to them. Because I actually went to an event in Brøndby Stadium, right, where like when you go into the room, it's like much friendlier atmosphere. And then I went to an event at Wisla Krakow Stadium in Poland, and like it's much harder atmosphere. Like it's like Serbian clubs there, Turkish clubs, Polish clubs, Hungarian clubs, so kind of that Eastern European block. I feel like a lot of people would be scared going into that room, but I really jive in that environment. I think just based on my personality, and once you talk to those people, they open up and they're super friendly, and they really love the U.S., right? So they really love American players and actually Canadian players as well. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say Eastern Europe, Baltic, Scandinavia, and Poland, right? I mean, I think that's a lot of markets.
Yeah.
And then thankfully as well, to be honest, which is really um, nice to see, the USL and MLS clubs were probably the most receptive, right, to talking to us. And obviously, what we try to bring is that unique selling proposition of like, hey, I'm from New York, but I've been over here 12 years. My goal is to bring like talented Europeans to the States, or even find Americans that have been here and bring them.
Yeah. How are you breaking the barrier? Obviously, I played in Scandinavia. People are very introverted for the most part, from my experience, but introverted, but in a good way, like very good people, very open once you get to know them. But I think breaking that initial barrier of like, it doesn't matter like how many followers you have, what you've done, but
Yeah.
how are you able to, I know you have a big personality. You're willing to kind of knock on any door, and you don't really care who the person is. Like you are genuine about making that connection. But what's been like, I'm sure you've faced challenges of reaching out to the people, but how have you been able
Yeah.
to tap in?
Yeah, no, great question. So to be honest, I have every Superettan coach's number, but I don't think I one of them answered my WhatsApp this
Yeah.
last window. So as you know, I think it's kind of like when you're in that club, right? What I've seen is you're in the club. So when I went over to the Brøndby Stadium, it was much better to shake hands and meet in person and look them in the eyes, right? Because the truth is, like, I mean, I would have hoped they would have taken one chance on one of our guys. But the truth is, like, they're getting so many messages on WhatsApp, so it's like, get this guy out the door, this guy out the door, unless he brings me someone special. So my whole thing is just like kind of learning more about them and their club, right? I don't When I get into a conversation, I don't talk about myself. I kind of say, try to learn about them, their playing style, their club. And then when they ask me about, myself, our agency, I try to bring value, right? So the same thing I tell players when they go to a trial is you have to be an asset to the club, right? Myself as an agent, and our system, we have to be an asset to the club. If not, they don't care about us. This is business.
Yeah. Actually, we're going to tie a little bit of this in together in terms of players being assets, but I know I've obviously we've spoken a lot over the years, and I know you played in Latvia for a bit, and after you stopped playing there, you were in the midst of a potential takeover of a club. Um, what was the motivation behind that? And obviously the deal fell through, but you know how close was it to happening, one, and then two, what was the reason for why you picked Latvia in the first place?
Mm. Yeah, so to be honest, as you said, I played in a lot of places, but Latvia, was, one of my favorite places that I played in. Clean, safe, similar to Scandinavian people, or even a bit more reserved. But once you talk to them, you become good friends. I still have a couple of good friends there, specifically club owner at FK Meta. He's become a good friend of mine. And the main reason to start over there was the foreign rule, right? So 8 out of 11 players in Latvia in the second tier and also the first tier can be foreign. And obviously, yeah, so
Easy.
yeah, I mean that's why a lot of clubs bring over young African players, right? They try to sell them. I mean that league, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they sell tons of players, and it's a great launch pad, right? And that's kind of the reason I wanted to start it because, to be honest, a lot of Americans, especially older players, are trying to go to the Spain or UK or Portugal, and right, there's so much domestic talent there, right? So my whole thing, and if I would have started over, and that's one of the mistakes I made, I would have stayed in Latvia. I had a trial at FK Jelgava when I was 20, and I was with the guy who sent me there was actually one of my coaches from Germany, right? And he sent me over there, and he's like, "Hey, you're going to be with the second team for 2 weeks, right? Because you're a nobody." Right? And I accepted I was a nobody, and if you're good enough, you'll train and have a chance to sign with the first team. So like 3 days went by, did well. They brought me up to the first team and basically trained, for 2 weeks. And then, they were quite interested, but they wanted to see me in a 90-minute game. Uh, basically, didn't sleep well the night before, did some things I probably shouldn't have done, was up till, like 4 a.m. And the game was at 9 a.m. I woke up at, I think, 7:30 or 8 a.m., didn't sleep too well. And, I showed up and I was average, I was the same as the other guys. As as a foreign player, you got to be 1.5 to 2 times better. So they said, Eric, we saw you had a lot of quality, but you just didn't show enough in today's match. And the guy who helped me there, God rest his soul, he was an amazing guy, Gins Freimanis. He played against, Ronaldo, played against, some of the biggest players in the world on the national team. He always believed in me, and he wanted me to stay and play with the second team. And the second team at the time, I think it was either second or third tier. And I had like this American ego, like, oh, what am I going to tell my boys from college? I left college and now I'm playing second or third tier Latvia, right? So he wanted me to stay, and he was like, hey, dude, if you stay for a couple months, I'm almost sure based on your potential, you can go up to the first team. I was arrogant, didn't have the right, mentor, and I, didn't do it, right? So come back to Latvia, he brought me back, right? Because his childhood club, Saldus, he wanted to bring them up to the first tier. And, I came back, and the main reason for building it was to give Americans, to give undiscovered players a chance. So basically what happened is I got an investor. We bought the license from the club at Saldus, and I think it was $15K the investor put down for the license. We were going to move it to Yermala, where the club Spartak Yermala, got involved in some, some of not the best things. They kind of folded, and I was told by the academy director, hey, Eric, if you do everything, the right way and all your money's clean, we'll support you, right? We'll give $500,000 to $1 million to the project. This was in October. I think it was 2024. And, I think I had met with over 50 investors, built a pitch deck, and finally got someone to, invest into the project and believe in the project. And we had 2 meetings with the city council, right? And they were supportive because the investor was big into real estate, right? And he said, the way I'm going to make money off of this, besides when we get into the first league, is real estate. So long story short, we got 14 players ready, some top guys, Jordan Bender, who's playing in the USL now. We got him over to Meta after it fell through. We had a guy named Deshaun. He played a little bit in the USL. A couple other players from First League in Latvia who believed in the project. We had the coach ready, right? Who top guy. He's the guy who comes on for the calls. He's now at Regional Liga, and everything was going to go through. I was told by that same guy, Eric, if you do everything right, we'll support you. Da da da. And his feeder club was supposed to be the academy. And essentially, UEFA, if you don't have a youth club, since we were a new club, we would have had to pay a $75K fine. So yeah, basically all we needed was the guy's signature. Dude, from like November till I think January, it was like 10 weeks, the guy ignored us. And meanwhile, we were getting everything organized. We had an apartment complex. We had apartments for the coaches. We had the team manager. And yeah, we had everything organized, and we just didn't get the guy's signature. All of a sudden, we get a call. I think it was January 24th. Preseason was supposed to start February 5th. We get a call. Hey, the Yermala Council, isn't willing to give you the stadium for your agreed upon amount. They're going to charge you, I think it was 2,500 euros or 3,000 euros per game to play on the pitch, and about 1,500 euros to train.
Yeah, and
And I was like,
there's no way you're bringing that kind of money right away.
yeah, exactly. So, dude, like, I gotta tell you, this was like one of the hardest periods of my life. For 3 weeks, man, like I couldn't eat. Like I had the worst anxiety, bro. And it wasn't for me, it was actually for the players. Because as a player, like you have a contract on the line or you have a plan, you're declining other offers, right? So I was like, yeah, man, this is tough. And then, got on the phone with a couple of good friends, and they were like, if you don't go through with this, you're going to ruin your brand. And I was confident enough in myself and my brand that wasn't going to happen, and I wasn't going to sacrifice my health for this. So we were 80K deep, and if we kept going, I don't know where we would be at, right? We'd be half a million down, whatever how the project went. And I pulled the plug January 26th, called all the players, and yeah, kind of canceled the whole project. And that's really what started. That was the, you know, that catalyst to starting like really being serious about RicFit Academy, right? And really, my whole vision was like, boom, you walk into the stadium, you have every single department, right? That's why we have all those details. You have every single department taken care of, right? And my goal was to build it on ground. Maybe eventually we'll have a facility. I think so, but now it's to build that community and that trust online, prove the system, and then eventually, we get into brick and mortar and we start creating those partnerships. But yeah, I pulled the plug,
Wow.
and yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have met my wife if I didn't do that, right? So,
Yeah.
grateful that happened because yeah, I met her on the street. I think a couple of days later, just walked up to her, as you said, like
Funny how life works.
yeah, yeah. As you said, like I don't care walking up to anyone. I was like, I'm gonna shoot my shot here, and that was it. Right here we are. Today's our 2-year anniversary. Got engaged
Hey,
in August.
that's
Yeah,
awesome. No, man, I mean, that's a wild story. I think, um, first of all, very noble to try and go and conquer a team in Latvia. Obviously, you spent time there, but still, it's always going to be difficult to navigate business deals anywhere outside of your home country.
exactly.
Also, like, I don't want to generalize Eastern Europe, but there's shady stuff that happens. I've heard
Yeah.
stories through the grapevine of players not getting paid, money laundering.
Hmm.
It's sad that's a part of the game, but that's something you got to navigate through. And
100%.
I mean, I'm glad you weren't able to follow through because at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to go into that financial debt to try
100%.
and make a club like that continue. But the way I also see it is a lot of these lower tier clubs are, you're bleeding money, especially from the start. Even just like been following the way Wrexham has built their club, obviously getting promoted, but they're in a position where if they don't get promoted, I mean, they're projecting that they're going to be playing in the Premier League. I don't know what the business plan was, but projecting to be in the Premier League by this or this year. And if they're not able
Hmm.
to make it, they won't have the funds to continue. How much were you? What was your initial vision to make this project go? Like, did you have Champions League aspirations? Obviously, Latvia, you can qualify through, but
Hmm. Hmm.
what was when you were pitching to investors to try and get capital? What was your pitch to them?
Yeah. So as you said, man, I mean, and this is the funny thing about football, like as a player, you always think the agents are the bad guys, right? You always think the club owners are the bad guys. You always think the coaches are the bad guys. But when you like see every position from your perspective and point of view, you realize how hard this business is, right? And club ownership, I would say, is probably the hard. Like obviously, I built RicFit kind of let's say from nothing, but club ownership is one of the hardest things and biggest, most pressure. That's why you see PE guys going in. It's really a billionaire's game, if you want to be at the top, right? It's like you got to have play money. You can't be expecting for it to be like a investment and within like 5 to 10 years you got something. It's more like a 20, 30-year project, So yeah, I mean, basically the way we were going to generate revenue was obviously using the brand partnerships, camps, showcases, tours, things like this. Like that was the plan. In terms of like big vision, we wanted to get into the Europa League, right? Obviously, I'm a big guy on like dreams and having a massive vision, but like, Champions League at that point was a bit unrealistic. It was more just like Europa League and then, see what happens, right? Because you could qualify, right? The top three clubs, or I think it might even be top four now, have the chance to qualify to get into Europa League. And as you've probably seen, Riga FC, RFS have done quite well, there.
Yeah. No, that's and then even speaking about like player salaries, again, speaking on the debt side, you're not, I mean, how many people are going to watch a game in Latvia right now? And how much are you
Yeah,
really charging for a game? Like, a couple euros, 5 euros. And, you know, like you said, you need you need that big money coming in, that big TV money to make it more sustainable.
exactly.
You know, what was, you know, what was your motivation you know, to continue that project, to try and get it to go through? Because, you know, obviously being a part of the game, experiencing everything, after that all happened, did you want to pivot and maybe try a takeover somewhere else? Or obviously
No, bro, I was done. I was
you're
done.
done now. So
After
that was kind
after
of
that, yeah, and I was gonna play that year, right? And I was actually gonna play and do the ownership side, which would have been crazy.
no,
Um,
that's we could
yeah,
do a Jackie Moon semi-pro. You're
yeah,
the player
yeah,
coach
yeah.
owner.
So
That
that, yeah, no, it would have been crazy. But to be honest, dude, I lost a lot of love for the game during it, and that's the biggest thing I say to young kids nowadays. Like, you got to fall in love with the game, right?
yeah,
Because once you get into the business side, a lot of, as you said, there are a lot of shady characters, you know. Um, and even the truth is, especially in professional football, as you know, like, obviously, I think in the U.S. it's much different, right? I mean, like, I think people are more friendly, but like in Europe, like, people, are putting, food on the table for their family and they don't care about you, right? It's the same thing for the club owners. Like, no one cares how a club owner feels. Like, if he's having, if he's feeling terribly emotionally, they just think he's racking in the cash,
yeah,
right? But it's like you start to realize, like, no one cares about you, right? And I realized that early on when I went over to Germany, and that's kind of what gave me the freedom, and allowed me to kind of chase what I wanted to chase. But the quicker you realize that in this game, it's harsh, but the quicker you take control of your own development. And that's the massive part about RicFit. It's like you got to take care of your own development. You can't rely on a coach, teammate, parent, girlfriend. It's on you. You got to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, hey, did I do what I needed to do today or not? Right. And then that next day, you got to fix it. Or, maybe it's not for you if you want to play professionally.
for sure. Just kind of pivoting. Obviously, World Cup is coming up. I wanted to get your thoughts, perspective. The growth of the game in North America. How does Rick Fit play and tie into that? What do you have on the decks for the summer in terms of, obviously this is a big moment for you to capitalize on for your agency. What are you going to be doing? It's kind of obviously you're a big planner, but what are you trying to do for the World Cup in terms of your growth?
Yeah. So to be honest, we haven't planned much for it, right?
Sure.
Um, I'm going to be going to the US and I'm going to be trying to connect and go to the parties, and meet the right people in the game. But what I found, as amazing as like the event planning and like doing your planning is, I just try to, kind of like Kobe said, just try to go into everything with even keel, not too high, not too low, because I think if you make your expectations too high, you go in and then it could drop, right? So I just try to go in, as even keel as possible, with my New York personality, and I try to, make the most of it. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be around some of the games. Um, didn't get tickets because I was dealing with some, let's say, paperwork in Europe. Right. Finally got the residency card,
Nice.
but I
You've
I
spent enough
wasn't sure.
time there.
What's up?
Spent enough time there where you've earned it.
Yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure I was gonna get it, so I did no planning. I didn't, get tickets to any game. Um, but yeah, I mean, in terms of like when we were over there a year ago, we were thinking of like running some pop up events, which we may do, just to kind of gather the community. Um, but yeah, no major planning, but it's super exciting to see, you know, the US growing, the USL, as you know, hopefully with the promotion relegation in 2027. USL Championship trying to become a selling league now. I mean, we're working with 2 or 3 clubs now trying to sell some of their guys to Europe. And, as much as everyone, thinks in this part of the world that Americans don't know much about football, it's changing, right? I see it changing slowly, which is nice to see. And I think, I don't know what a big reason is. Obviously, with MLS growing and a lot of Europeans, wanting to coach in the U.S., I think that's a massive part. But no, it's exciting to see. And one of the biggest things that I had seen from a lot of the European clubs is they expect our guys, our North Americans, to be like really good athletes,
Yeah.
right? That's the difference maker they saw.
Yeah. Do you think that this also opens a window for there to be more trust to bring players abroad, Americans to go overseas?
I think so. I think so. I mean, what are you talking about from the player side, the family side, the club
No,
side?
I'm just saying in general. I feel like when we were playing, it was pretty taboo for Americans to go overseas and
Yeah.
play, and there wasn't a lot of that trust factor. And I think it's changed. I think for me, the pioneer for that was Christian Pulisic going in. I'm
Yes.
talking like as an academy player going into Dortmund
Yes.
and having success. And you've seen it change now. You know, your clubs like clubs in Germany, clubs in England's a little more difficult with their laws, but you see more players going abroad. But now, do you feel like you're going to see younger kids maybe get opportunities where obviously laws permitting, you know, a U13, a kid, sorry, not 13, maybe like a 15-year-old going into like a Riga, for example, into their academy,
Hmm.
and them taking a chance on them to develop and to potentially sell them.
I hope. Yeah, I hope. I think so. I think, to be honest, the Scandinavians are more willing to take a risk on our players. I think they have a bit more of open mindedness at the younger age. Um, yeah, I mean, I
Are
think it
are
really,
there
really
are there
depends.
are there laws around that though? Like, I don't know if it's changed. I could be mistaken, but can like a
Yeah,
16-year-old move to Stockholm and play for like U Gordon now, or do they have to turn 18 before they can move?
yeah. So they would either need a foster family or essentially, I mean, it's illegal, but the parent would have to move over there,
Sure.
right? So, essentially, according to FIFA rules, if, for example, Real Madrid wants to bring an American player over, you know, what they used to do or they still do is they get the parent a job, right? So if the parent has a job, they move over, right? That allows it to happen. Or you can do the foster family situation.
Yeah. Back to like the kind of the World Cup talk, but what for you is success for the U.S.? Obviously on the field, but what do you expect to see, like, pending their success on the field, like the growth in the game in the US? What do how do you compare or combine both of them together?
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more, our players are getting smarter, in terms of decision making. Obviously, physicality, we have that. Yeah, I think, managing the game, I think decision making. Obviously, I think you could tell me more than I could tell you in terms of, the US youth. But what I've noticed, is players that come over here, are definitely, getting smarter, able to learn to win, right? I think the biggest thing that a lot of clubs here that they teach from a young age is how to win.
Yeah. But I feel like there's a fine line between you have to obviously learn how to compete and win, but I feel like the issue in the US with the youth game is like there's too much of an emphasis to win and not enough
Okay.
on the development. Like, look, if you lose a game at the youth side, like, if we'll take this for example, right? You win 10-0 against somebody, but then the next week you lose 2-0. What game do you get more development from? For me, just as a coach
Two
now
zero.
seeing it, I feel like the 2-0 loss, because obviously 10-0 you're far superior to them. Like, it clearly was not much of a challenge. But then you go to the 2-0 game and like you're battling tough moments in the game. Uh, Tactically, are you behind? So
Mm,
um, I feel like we need to find ways to combine both.
mhm,
Something the MLS Next has done really well for me is that they've so previously, like for example, like I'll give you this example. Last year we played Shattuck,
mm,
and we play Shattuck, and it's not what Shattuck was back in the day. I mean, still very good players, but they're not able to bring in top talent like they used to. For us, it was an easy win when we play at
mm,
age, but now when we play Shattuck, we play the team that's a year older. So now, like, yeah, maybe the margin of score is not as great, but you're dealing with playing with, maybe kids that are a year more mature, and finding ways to play around that. I mean, we're big on not just forcing physical athletes. Late developers are something that are,
that's
often
amazing.
overlooked. So I think that's important as well. But yeah, man, we'll kind of see. Yeah,
Mhm,
you hit the nail on the head with the competing part. I think sometimes like we lose a game and I'm like I'm devastated. Like we just spent a whole week
exactly,
preparing, training,
exactly.
and I look over and sometimes the kids are like whatever, and I'm like, what? No
Yeah,
way! Like you gotta
yeah,
like. I'm not saying throw a tantrum and throw a chair at the wall and be upset, but like there needs to be a little bit of like, ask yourself like why? Like, did I do my best today? Were they better than
mhm,
me? What can I do to improve? And I don't think there's enough
mhm.
of that with the culture in the US. And I do hope that that changes.
Yeah, and I wonder why that is, right? Because that's what I was told by this Polish sporting director. I forgot what club it was, but his player went over to the MLS, and the pressure was just completely different, right? In the Ekstraklasa, Polish top tier, like it's chaos every single week. The fans are on you. You can't walk outside if you lose a game, right? But in the US, if you lose a game 3-0, he said the player told him that, the music was blasting, right? And they were still, having fun, right? So, I mean, for me, obviously, I don't know, as I'm not as entrenched as you in terms of the youth. But yeah, it's an interesting balance, right? I mean, I think I think more as a coach, but I think it's all player dependent in terms of like, I mean, for me, I'm all about like giving those late bloomers a chance, and I think it's everyone about finding their own quality and their what strength and what they can bring to a game, what in their role can they be an asset, and that's one of the biggest thing I learned coming overseas when I
Yeah.
first came overseas. I was a center mid, I was a number 6, and I tried to do everything, right? I would go to the right back, get the ball. I would go to the left center back, get the ball. And like, that's kind of what I was taught, right? In the US, like, you can do everything, if you're good on the ball. But then you realize, hey, you're blocking this passing lane. Hey, if you get countered, you're not, in your position. And that's one thing I always remember that this guy Gins told me. He's like, Eric, do what you got to do as a 6. You don't need to play those risky balls. Give it to the 8 or the 10. Let him do it, right? Obviously, yeah, if you're minute 35 or 40, you're in the game and you're like, "Hey, I see it, hit it." But you got to play your role. Break up the play, move the ball, and don't lose the ball. So what I really realized the main difference, and I still see it. We brought a couple. I mean, we bring tons of American players over here. They're not playing their role inside of the team. They're trying to do everything, right? They're trying to be the man. When rather, hey, Johnny, if you could be the best number 6 for the team, you don't need to be flashy. You're going to get into the team and you're going to move up the ladder. But if you go over to Europe and you try to get the ball every single time, you're blocking lanes and people are going to get pissed at you, and it's not going to work out.
Yeah. And I think a little bit of that is also the identity of the club you play for
Yeah.
in terms of like, every team's different. Like, what do you want your six to do? Right? Do you want them to be dual second balls? Do you want him to just, I mean, you look at it like a Conte versus a Busquets, right? Same position,
Hmm.
very different profile, very different
Exactly.
job in what they do. So I think it's important for the club to like really highlight, you know, what the strength is and what you need them to do. I think that's important. And then touching base on what you were saying in terms of the results orientation thing of not taking things personally. I think the biggest issue is the American culture of that's been built with the NBA, with the NFL, with the MLB, right?
Mm.
You win, you lose. Like at the end of the year, like you start 0-0, same
Yeah.
league. You still get the same TV rights. You're still bringing in the same money. Um, and the MLS has a little bit of that as well, and same with the USL. And obviously, USL trying to do the pro rel is going to be,
Mm.
I'm curious to see what that's going to look like. But in Europe, it's like embedded in their DNA,
For
right?
sure.
If you are losing games, we're getting relegated,
Yeah.
and we don't want to get relegated. We don't have the same funds. We can't bring in the same players.
Exactly.
Fans aren't going to come to the games. So there's a little bit of that culture. I just wonder, how do you bring both together? Obviously, I
Yeah.
think it's a big step in the MLS going to the year-round season or
Hmm.
connecting with the European schedule.
When does that start?
It's next year. It's after the World Cup.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
so I wonder how that factors in as well in terms of that. But I will say it's been nice to see. It's not the same teams at the bottom, so I mean we're pretty early on in the season, but I think the level is kind of evening out in the MLS,
Hmm.
more
Yeah.
competitive, and you also got to consider in the US the difficulty of travel.
For
In
sure. No,
Europe, if
for
you're
sure.
if you're playing domestically, like you're not really. I mean, longest bus ride, you know, 4 or 5 hours. Here it's
Hmm.
like you're getting on a flight. Obviously, I know it's charter for MLS, and but still, you're still getting on a
Yeah,
flight,
but
going the
still
night
tough on
before.
the body. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have that element, and you see a lot of home teams do well just because of that. You figure out how to win games and get points.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, one
but
of the guys we were working with for many years, Osase, who's at FC Dallas. I mean, he told me, and this kid's an absolute machine. I mean, he was at Celtic, Amiens, Ostend in Belgium, and he had an unbelievable year. But he said it was the toughest season he's ever had because of the travel. He said there's
yeah,
nothing like it.
yeah, it's. I mean, obviously you have the Champions League, but those are the elite teams playing. You're traveling a little more for that. But no, I think there's definitely a way to make all this work and grow the. I genuinely believe that the MLS will be with the investment coming in with these franchise fees are extraordinary. Like they're putting money into the US. It's going to take time. It doesn't come
Yeah,
overnight, but I think at some point you're going to have the MLS at the same level as your EPL, your Bundesliga.
that'd be amazing. That'd be
Uh,
amazing.
I think in our
What do you
life.
think of the fans, though? What do you think of the fans? I mean,
Um,
that's a big problem, I think.
yeah, it's honestly, I've been seeing a lot of stuff on, a lot of people on TikTok, Instagram, trying to like grow the game on the fan side and give more information. I think we're still far off, man.
Yeah.
And it's again, I go back to the culture of the NFL, the NBA, and all the other American sports. You go to the game. I was at a Bulls game earlier this year, and they were playing the Warriors. Granted, Steph Curry wasn't playing; none of the top players were playing, but nobody's really watching the game. People are like walking
Yeah.
around the
It's
stadium,
entertainment
socializing. Yeah, they're socializing. And look, it depends on how you want to take the entertainment, right? You can sit back and be locked in and watch the game, or you can, walk around the stadium. But in Europe, it's a whole different beast. Like you have
for sure.
people that live the whole week, and the one thing they wait for on the weekend is to go support their team. And
Hmm.
it brings a whole community together. And I think maybe also, just the size of the cities in Europe are smaller,
Yeah, and the
Uh,
team fuels the city,
yeah. And I'd also say a little bit of it is that winning mentality. Obviously, we have the Chicago Bears here, and they've been pretty poor for years.
Yeah.
And this year they balled out. You have some Caleb Williams is a stud, and now everyone's a Chicago Bears fan.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
like
that front
you
runner.
need to support the team when they're also in their tough moments. I know it's not easy, but I think we don't have that patience as fans here in the
Yeah.
U.S.
Yeah, I mean, even in England, man. I mean, to be honest, one of my favorite stadiums to go to is Loftus Road. QPR.
Yeah.
It's electric there. I'd rather go there than like a Arsenal or a Chelsea game. I enjoy it more. I don't know. You just feel a different type of vibe, and like a different type of care. Like it's actually the full city. Where at the bigger club games, it's more like international people coming, and it's like a tourist attraction.
Yeah, I think the MLS has done well with that, with building new stadiums and giving fans that that sense of like belongingness and community. But
Hmm.
I think the USL is capitalizing a little better just because you're looking at smaller markets. I take Detroit
Yeah.
City for example.
Mm.
Obviously amazing story going from NPSL to NISA
Yeah.
to USL Championship, but those fans are every single game it's a sellout crowd. You got flares, you got it's an electric atmosphere. So
Yeah.
I think finding ways to bring the people together is going to be the key for like the bigger markets. But
Hmm.
I think it's possible. But it's cool also bringing in another sport, the NBA. San Antonio Spurs now. I don't know how familiar you are with this, but obviously Victor Wembanyama is like a big NBA superstar, and he
Yeah.
started this. Obviously, in Europe, I don't know how many EuroLeague basketball games you've been to, but I mean, it's the same idea. Like people are singing, chanting all game. Nobody's sitting back
Mm.
and just relaxing. So he started this concept of like gets a big drum and starts
Yeah. I
beating
think
it.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the fans start clapping. So I think it's cool that they're doing that because
Mm.
maybe other teams will catch on and start to create their own sense of culture.
Yeah.
And hopefully it starts to build with every team. I think that that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I think one of the best things that we're good at as Americans is like marketing and figuring that out. So I think, as you said, I have faith that we'll be able to figure out that fan culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Eric, I appreciate you taking the time.
Appreciate you having me.
I'm gonna drop all your stuff, all your handles below. But
Sounds good.
honestly, keep crushing it, dude.
Appreciate it.
You're a genuine guy, and I love the idea of your agency not just being. I'm gonna call Eric and just have him like send my CV out to places. You're
Yeah,
building. You're not building just a player. You're building a well-rounded person, and I think
exactly.
as
Appreciate
someone
it.
that for me, as someone that retired and didn't really have like a plan B after I was done playing, it's important to have that, that fallback. Like, what are you going to do when you're done playing? Because the
Exactly.
game, the game is such a short period of time. Obviously, what, 10, 12, 15 years, but at some point it's going to end. And
100%.
it's important to help set people up for success after. So kudos to you.
Appreciate
Yeah,
kind
man, keep
words.
crushing. All right.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah,
Thanks so
but
much for having me.
of course.